Welcome back to another episode of Real Quick with Gio and Giovanni. Happy Friday. The weekend has landed, and yes, a lot of bombs dropped yesterday that will have a significant impact on the presidential race going forward. And yes, Vice President Biden is not the winner just yet. As a matter of fact, in the Epoch Times, President Trump is in the lead of electoral votes at 232 compared to Vice President Biden at 227. But you would know that those numbers if you watch the major news networks, most cable news channels, and Google the results after you were on Snapchat. Plus, all the posts being censored or have disclaimed attached if you go against the Silicon Valley view of the election. An amazing turn of events is transpiring. But since we are not at the forefront of all the court cases taking place inside the presidential battleground states, I believe we only know so much. That is, unless you are comedian and political pundit Steven Crowder, the host of Morning Mug Club on YouTube and Blaze TV every Wednesday morning. Kind of a shameless plug right there for a show I'm not a part of, but I am a fan, however. On Thursday morning, show host Crowder showcased more evidence than any Republican or conservatives has talked about or posted since November 3rd. According to the Michigan Wayne County election count, there were over 173,000 votes counted for 134,000 absentee ballots that were not registered. That is correct. There were 173,000 votes for 134,000 absentee ballots not registered. If that was hard to fathom, there's more. 97% of the votes casted were for Vice President Biden, and only 3% were for President Trump. Now you may be questioning, so what? More people voted for Biden. That's true. But on Morning Mud Club, Crowder broke down the state of Michigan in predominantly a red-leaning state by this year's voting pattern. And in particular, Wayne County, the epicenter of irregularity votings during this month's election, has a very interesting turnout according to the data provided by the state. So he looked up a lot of information according to the state and even made some phone calls too, which didn't get very far of, but he had it all laid out on his show yesterday. Places surrounding Detroit like Livonia, Grosse Pointe, lots of other places, predominantly had registered voters show up to the polls an average of 85%. And it favored President Trump. We will basically call this Trump country. That's how much vote he had. Then we go down to Detroit. More of a mixed race of people. And by the way, President Trump scored heavily with minorities than any Republican in history, and more than in 2016, Crowder pointed out. And that is true. And a side note to bring evidence to the claim. In Detroit, there were thousands of registered voters according to the Michigan voting numbers, which is public. Only 15% of the registered voters came out and voted. All the precincts in Detroit, only 15% came out. And Detroit would have a high minority turnout because, like Crowder said, every other city did. Now, for who was in the lead in Detroit by this time before the absentee ballot was not disclosed, we don't really have the exact number, but we do know that President Trump was in the lead. Why? Because at the end of election night, Trump was in the lead until the middle of the night when 150,000 ballots were cast and 97% were for Joe Biden, while President Trump received only 3%. If you remember that, in the middle of the night, 150,000 votes just suddenly appeared and all casted predominantly for Joe Biden. Something's just not right. So here's the overview of everything. So Detroit had an average of 15% turnout. All the surrounding areas around Detroit had a turnout of about 85%, and it was predominantly for President Trump. And then, of course, we have the absentee ballots. Now, we found out with the absentee ballots that 0 of the absentee ballots were registered to anybody. Think about that for a moment. 0 of the absentee ballots had no one registered, which I don't really know if that's illegal, but I also did some digging myself. And according to the Michigan AVBD or AVCB, which is Absentee Ballot Council Board, you have to register every ballot that comes in. So what happens is that there are like a bunch of precincts for all these ballots that are being mailed in, and they had double the amount of absentee ballots that came in prior to 2016, which had a lot of ballots coming in. And now in 2020, it's now double the amount. So then what happened is that a bunch of these precincts got set up around Detroit. And there's over 130, there's 134 of them. And they each had between 118 to 2,500 votes, all absentee. Okay. And then what's supposed to happen is whenever these ballots come in, they're all supposed to be registered. And on the day of the election, they're all supposed to be accounted for in the register before they get sent over to the precincts to be counted. Okay. And that's all on the michiganclerks.org PowerPoint presentation. All absentee ballots, return envelopes should be sorted and recounted by and against the number of return envelopes received. Absentee ballots have to be reconciled by the AVCB, and that's on their website, by the way. So it totaled 173,000 votes not by Crowder, but Crowder pointed out that 173,000 votes were absentee. Okay, of the 134,000 ballots that there were in that county. So it doesn't match up. They called the county a few different times, couldn't get anywhere. 0 registered voters on 173,000 votes for 134,000 absentee ballots. And in the middle of the night, 150,000 votes came through, predominantly for Joe Biden and only 3% for Trump. So, and according to Crowder, the absentee ballot would have to have a turnout of 100%, and they would all go for Biden, which pretty much happened. And that's what put Biden over the lead. So, the liberal left-leaning fans and the ideology, the left-leaning news, mainstream press, intelligentsia, you get the idea. They all are asking for the evidence, the evidence, the evidence. You can't get more evidence than this. Or am I just crazy? Like, this is insane what's going on here. You do not have, these absentee ballot votes have to be registered, and none of them were. Why? Why did that not happen? Very strange. Very strange. And again, you could look all this up, but this show gives you the other side of the story that you don't hear on the mainstream press. Anyway, very strange stuff. I'd like to know your thoughts about what I'm saying. Have a question, I'll answer it. Send me a message through anchor.fm. And find me on YouTube by typing in Gio Giovanni Presents and leave a question or comment below. Also find me on Parler.com at Gio Giovanni, all one word. Real Quick with Gio Giovanni can be found on anchor.fm and all major podcast platforms. Become a supporter of this podcast with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes of Real Quick with Gio Giovanni by going to anchor.fm/Real Quick with Gio Giovanni. Thank you for tuning in to Real Quick with Gio Giovanni. Have a great day and God bless.